The only fortress you clung to in the storm of inflation has now collapsed. Costco has raised the price of frozen food, not gradually but doubled overnight. A familiar box of pizza jumped from under $6 to nearly $12. Frozen vegetables cost as much as fresh produce from the farm. The freezer is no longer the budget option, but the place draining your fortune. The point is, it's not that Costco wanted this. They had been holding prices for years, but the nationwide wave of frozen food recalls has broken the supply chain. Dozens of products were recalled by the FDA. The scarcity of supply forced prices to rise beyond control. If even Costco has no choice, then what can you still cling to? Watch this video to stock up on these items in time before they double, quadruple, or disappear forever. Number 1. Frozen pizza. Have you noticed lately frozen pizza at Costco has gone up in price across the board? Before $10 could get you a large-sized box loaded with toppings enough for the whole family. And now $17 with a cheese layer thin as hair and a crust that feels light as air. People call that shrinkflation, but for those who live on every penny saved, this is a shock. Because frozen pizza, once considered a lifesaver, is no longer an easy choice. Many people don't eat pizza because it's delicious, but because it's a financially safe meal. When electricity, gas, healthcare, and housing all get more expensive, then a pizza baked at home feels more affordable than ordering from a restaurant. But now, even that solution isn't cheap anymore. And then they begin to hear warnings. Trader Joe's pizza imported from Italy was flagged for not passing inspection. Vermont had thousands of boxes recalled for missing allergen warnings. Not Costco's products, but such news alone is enough to make people uneasy. No one says Costco did anything wrong. But in that context, they began tightening inspections, limiting suppliers, raising operating costs. The result, prices went up. The problem is consumers weren't told. They only saw yesterday $9, today $17. No explanation, no note shared. And debates broke out. Some accept higher prices as long as it means safety, better to pay a few dollars more than eat contaminated food. But others reject that reason. Ensuring safety is a basic responsibility, not an excuse to drain customers' wallets. In the past, giants like Costco and Walmart passed tariffs and inflation onto consumers, and now inspection costs are also pushed onto customers. Do you see? Whatever the reason, we are still the ones who bear it in the end. And then a new trend emerged. Many began learning how to make pizza at home. Nothing fancy, just a pre-made crust, a few slices of ham, some cheese, a bit of tomato sauce. But not everyone has the time, the oven, or the money to buy ingredients when even those prices are rising. Flour, cheese, olive oil, none of them stayed the same. That's the problem. People don't buy pizza just because they're hungry. They buy it for peace of mind. But now that feeling of peace is being chipped away bit by bit. And the sad thing is, no one tells them. No brand stands up to take responsibility. No one apologizes for higher prices, for shrinkflation, for leaving consumers in doubt. If something as simple as pizza can make people lose trust, then are supposedly healthier things like frozen vegetables really safe? We'll talk about that next. Number 2, frozen vegetables. Among frozen foods, vegetables are probably the healthiest option, and Costco is the first place many people think of when they want to stock up for the week. In truth, no one actually likes frozen vegetables. If given the choice, who wouldn't want fresh veggies on the table? But fresh ones are now both expensive and quick to wilt. The price of leafy greens in many states has jumped by 45% in just 1 year. Frozen broccoli at Costco once cost just over $6 a bag, now nearly $9. Not to mention the bag is smaller while the price is higher. For high-income households, that may not mean much. But for families living on pensions, social benefits, or minimum wage, that $3 difference is a whole extra meal for the week. Frozen vegetables therefore became a forced choice. Buy once, use for a week. Less waste, no spoilage worries, and with the feeling of being healthy. And if they have to choose, people trust Costco. Because at least there they see order branding standards. Vegetables neatly packed, kept at the right temperature, seemingly safe. That trust wasn't born overnight. It was built over years of problem-free shopping. But then this September, an FDA notice felt like a cold slap to that trust. Endico, a major frozen vegetable brand, was recalled over suspected Listeria contamination. Though not sold at Costco, the phrase frozen vegetables once again made headlines. And trust wavered. Customers don't have time to read carefully which brands are sold where. They only know frozen vegetables can also carry bacteria, can be recalled, can be flagged. And then almost immediately, Costco's frozen vegetable prices started climbing. No announcement, no explanation. Consumers only saw the bag of peas up $2, diced carrot bags climbing over 30% while weight dropped. Some got upset, some got worried. Some just silently put the bag back on the shelf and walked away. What irritates people is not just the higher prices, but the feeling of helplessness. They once believed frozen vegetables were the smart way to save money. Now they feel they're paying more for something they can't be sure is good. One joked that if Listeria bacteria can survive in a frozen bag, then surely poison can be stored frozen too. It sounds funny, but it reflects the real anxiety simmering inside many. They don't say it, but they feel it. Costco is still the destination for many. But the question is, are the things left on the shelves truly safe, or are they just waiting to be named? When something as basic as frozen vegetables can cause worry, then what awaits in more complex foods? Number 3, frozen seafood. After everyday convenient foods, even the more premium items aren't excluded from this list. That is frozen seafood. Specifically, shrimp, salmon, cod, the dishes many Americans jokingly call restaurant meals at a budget price. A box of frozen shrimp at Costco just over $20 can feed the whole family. Meanwhile, the same dish at Nobu or McCormick and Schmick's would cost at least $40 to $50 for a small portion. That's why so many consider Costco the perfect alternative: clean, inspected, convenient, affordable, and importantly, no need to eat out. But then things grew complicated. In just a few weeks at the end of August, a series of FDA warnings announced frozen shrimp recalls. The cause: some imported batches from Indonesia may have been contaminated with cesium-137, a dangerous radioactive material. Though levels weren't high enough to cause immediate illness, experts confirmed that repeated long-term consumption could affect DNA and raise cancer risk. The scary part is the shrimp showed no strange smell or discoloration. It still looked fresh, white, neatly packed like always. And because of that, many didn't notice, didn't suspect, kept buying and eating as usual. That incident made many feel distrust for the first time, because until now they never trusted restaurants, but they trusted Costco. They didn't trust outside chefs, but they trusted frozen products with inspection stamps, clear packing dates, and expiration labels. The food they thought was clean, smart, and affordable now became something confusing and unsettling. Some returned their purchases. Some quietly removed shrimp from their cart. Some stood frozen in front of the freezer, unsure what to trust anymore. And what about you? If standing before a bag of shrimp that looks perfect, but with the word radioactive echoing in your head, would you still put it in your cart? And right at that moment, prices went up. A shrimp box that once cost $21 is now nearly $30. Salmon, once a week meal, now makes people hesitate at over $35 per pack. Some whitefish, once considered the budget option, are now priced so high people frown double compared to just months ago. The explanation: given higher refrigeration costs, stricter import controls, tougher inspections after recent scandals. The irony: consumers pay more not for better food, but just to keep the same items they once bought, now unsure if they're still safe. Some began comparing: if frozen shrimp prices are nearly equal to restaurant meals, why not just eat out? If they still have to spend nearly $40, is it worth cooking at home anymore? What would you choose? Pay more to keep the old habit, or gamble on a new option? Number 4. Prepared frozen meals. What comes to your mind when you hear the phrase prepared frozen meals? Maybe it's a steaming tray of lasagna after a few minutes in the oven, or a portion of chicken rice with rich, fragrant sauce. Meals that only require opening the box, putting it in the microwave, and waiting, and just like that, you have a proper dinner. So convenient that few ever question: how is that meal actually cooked? How is it packed, and who ensures its quality? In the minds of many, especially those who often shop at Costco, frozen meals are automatically assumed safe. Because if they weren't, would such a big system dare to sell them everywhere? No need to read ingredient labels, no need to check expiration dates or batch codes. Just familiarity with the name, the taste, the box, and into the cart it goes. And then the incident last March was like a slap to that habit. Nestlé USA suddenly announced a recall of multiple products from lean cuisine and stuffers. From pumpkin ravioli to party-sized chicken lasagna, all carried the risk of containing objects resembling wood fragments. What's more alarming is that these products had been produced since last August, meaning for nearly half a year, no one noticed, no one reported anything until someone nearly choked. Not bacteria, not expiration, but wood pieces inside packaged meals. It sounds minor, but the more you think about it, the scarier it becomes. No one blames the buyers. Honestly, Who would imagine wood splinters inside a lasagna tray that looks perfectly safe and delicious? The problem lies in habit. Seeing the familiar orange box feels like it's been through every inspection. You've eaten it before without issue, so you assume this time is fine too. That familiarity dulls vigilance and leaves us completely unprepared when accidents happen. And then the story didn't end with a recall. A few weeks later, frozen meal prices began inching upward. Each lasagna tray went up by $1 ravioli boxes, nearly $1.5 higher than at the start of summer. Some shrugged it off as inflation, but others started asking, what am I really paying for? For convenience or for a packaged risk hidden in pretty wrapping? So maybe this is the time to slow down. Not to turn your back on convenience foods, but to make sure you truly know what you're eating every day. Because convenience doesn't mean ignoring everything, and familiarity doesn't equal absolute safety. Number 5, ice cream and frozen dairy products. The fifth name on the list is not an essential item, so it often gets overlooked. Maybe you carefully read frozen seafood labels or check vegetable codes before putting them in your cart. But what about ice cream? Do you remember the last time you read the ingredients or expiration date on a box of ice cream at Costco? Maybe never. People just roll their carts past the ice cream aisle, grab their favorite flavor, and toss it in unconsciously, like a reward after a long day. And then one day you freeze in place when you see that familiar box has nearly doubled in price in just a few months, while FDA news about ice cream is anything but sweet. Ice cream is food for emotions. People choose it not because it's necessary, but because it's comforting, easy, cheerful. Some families see it as an irreplaceable dessert after dinner. Some elderly still keep a small vanilla tub in the freezer as a way to remember childhood or simpler days. Precisely because it's a self-indulgence treat, very few are cautious with it. But that very complacency hides the fact that in the past few months, ice cream has been among the most recalled products. Bluebell Vanilla, G-Nut Wells. Enterprises, Rich's Ice Cream. All fell into crisis one after another. From wrong labels that nearly endangered allergy sufferers to plastic shards found in ice cream to suspected Listeria contamination. All were real, all publicly warned. But the problem is, how many people read those notices? And how many connect them with the tub of ice cream sitting in their own freezer? Plenty reacted when reading about recalls. But the reaction wasn't anger, it was more like silent hurt. Because consumers trust the system. They believe that if something goes wrong, someone will sound the alarm. They trust familiar brands, clean packaging, the cozy feeling of picking ice cream. And now they feel abandoned. No one warned them in advance. No one explained why a tub of ice cream jumped from $5 to nearly $10 in just one summer. Of course, everyone understands prices shift for many reasons. From ingredients, transportation, storage, to higher inspection costs after repeated incidents. But what leaves consumers reeling is the lack of transparency. They don't know if they're paying extra for protection or just covering mistakes that shouldn't have existed in the first place. We're not saying you should stop eating ice cream, nor denying the joy a scoop can bring. But maybe it's time consumers saw ice cream as more than just harmless sweetness. Because in today's complex world, sometimes the simplest things hide the greatest risks. Number 6, frozen ground meat. While beef prices in America are soaring, many people walking into Costco breathe a sigh of relief. At least frozen ground beef prices stayed the same, not a penny higher. Still $16 a pack of patties, just like months ago. Amid everything climbing, that stable price feels like a safe anchor. But then everything flipped with a food recall. A batch of frozen patties was pulled because of suspected small metal fragments inside. Not food poisoning, not spoilage, but metal. News of the recall left many disappointed. Until now, they trusted anything with proper labels, neat packaging, clear prices. Now they wonder, is the low price because it's good or because something was cut that I don't know about? Scarier than quality issues is the feeling of helplessness. You can't check, can't see, can't smell or taste. Yet you must decide whether to eat it. The truth is, once trust cracks, the price you pay is no longer just money. It's unease, hesitation, the loss of control you once had. And if even a pack of patties, the most familiar, simple, trustworthy item in the freezer, turns into something that makes you hesitate, then clearly consumers are paying more than they ever thought. Number 7, cold cuts. Maybe you don't eat bacon every day and you rarely touch a frozen sausage in the freezer. but chances are you still keep a pack around as a backup option. And if you're like many other consumers, you probably believe buying cold cuts at Costco must be safe. That's the trap. Because you don't eat it often because you only buy a little. People easily compromise with peace of mind. No checking expiration dates, no reading ingredients carefully, no noting the origin, and no awareness that from June to August there were at least 3 recalls related to sausage and bacon in the US. Among them, 1 recall for metal shards in sausage, 1 for Listeria in bacon sold across more than 15 states. These notices are usually buried in FDA bulletins or mentioned briefly on a manufacturer's homepage. Few ever know. Because most think what's there to worry about. Meat prices in general surged all summer, but among the affected items, bacon was one of the steepest risers. According to USDA data, the average retail price of bacon jumped from $4.5 USD to over $7.2 USD in just the past 3 months. Partly due to pork supply hit by climate and disease, partly due to surging demand from big chains launching new deli-heavy menus. But at Costco, many customers still think prices are stable because they're used to seeing those big cheap bacon packs. They think Costco is keeping its promise of good prices for every home. They don't notice that some packs have crept up week by week. Some products disappeared. Some brands quietly vanished. The key point is cold cuts aren't like pizza or ice cream. They sit between necessity and extra. People can live without them, but once accustomed, they're hard to give up, especially because they're convenient, especially because they tie to something like memory. Some older folks share how they've kept the habit of a slice of bacon every Sunday morning since youth. Not for taste, but for family feeling. Now they're unsure if that slice is still safe, and that leaves them emptier than angry. As consumer trust gets worn down bit by bit through every product, cold cuts aren't a knockout blow. They're a small, repeated prick, numbing you without your noticing. Little by little, you no longer know what's inspected and what's overlooked until discovered. You're unsure if what you pay extra for is higher quality or just for something unsaid. The 7 frozen items mentioned in this video are not just familiar names in American kitchens. They represent every segment from budget to premium, from essentials to desserts. And it seems that in this era of daily rising prices alongside quiet, constant recalls, everything we eat is becoming a gamble. If you have tips on buying frozen food safely and affordably, don't hesitate to share them in the comments. This video isn't meant to spread fear, nor to blame any retailer, including Costco. We only hope you gain a clearer, calmer perspective on what you eat every day. If you found the video useful, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll be with you through this era of expensive, troubled food.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage intoxication. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.